Hi, this is Faxi Nadu, and in today's video, we're going to be showing how you can use a modular system to clone basically any other plugin, whether it be an effects patch, a synth, or whatever, hardware, software, anything. You can use the modular system to kind of look at whatever it is that you want to clone, see what components it is made out of, and use the modular to clone it. And the reason you might want to do that is there might be like a feature that you would like added to some plugin, or something missing, or that it might behave in a certain way that you would like to have it behave differently. Or you could just, you would like maybe a certain plugin that you like, but you like the design, but you don't like the sound so much, and you would like to use a better system than whatever that plugin is using. And obviously Scope has a very good sound, so it's neat to do it. But for today, for this sort of exercise, we're going to take the Scope's Interpole plugin, which is a filter plugin with some quirks in it. Basically, it's an effect plugin that allows filtering of stereo audio signal, and it uses an LFO and an envelope follower and some other things that to kind of get a cool sound going. And the reason we chose to clone this particular plugin is that last night I actually had a chat with one of my buddies, my partner on Ocean Star Empire, Kyle, and he was using the Interpole on one of his synths. He was just using it as an effect, and he put the waveform of the LFO on sample and hold, and because he did that, the LFO was making audible clicks as it was switching from one sample and hold mode to the other. So I told him, oh, if you clone it in modular, then you can fix that. There's a way to make the LFO waveform less steppy while still retaining the same sound. So obviously, if you just have the Interpole, then you can't do that. But if you use the modular system, you can fix that thing in the LFO that we didn't like, and you can actually add and change the features of the Interpole to your liking. And this is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to have the Interpole open, which is this plugin, obviously, that you see here, and we're going to open an empty modular patch. And we're going to start having a look at what the Interpole does. So the first thing I've mentioned is that it is stereo. So if you look at the left side and the right side, they are exactly identical. So we don't need to clone all of this. All we need to clone is one side, and then we'll just copy paste whatever we made. And we'll also have the other side, and of course connect it to the other side signal chain, and kind of make it happen. So the first thing, of course, it is a filter. So we're not going to be cloning this one-to-one exact clone, because like I said, we want to actually add our own features. So in the Interpole, it is a low-pass filter. And I'm going to look, let's just look at one side. Let's look at the left side. So cut off the resonance on the filter. And we're looking just at the filter section. And we're noticing it has like an envelope sweep and a drive section and some stuff going on with the VCA. But first of all, we're going to pull out a filter, and we're already improving the Interpole design, because we're not going to use a low-pass filter. We're going to use a polyfilter module, and this module basically has a ton of filter types inside, and you can, using the drop-down menu, just switch between all of them. So this is great, and it provides many more options. Instead of just being a low-pass filter, the Interpole that we're making is a multi-mode filter with tons of stuff. So that is very cool. The second thing we notice is that the Interpole has an LFO inside. So this LFO, the first thing I did was, when I was messing around with it before, was I took an LFO-B out of here. This is the LFO-B. LFO, okay, it has the same wave shapes that the LFO on the Interpole has. So the LFO can be retriggered by MIDI, and it has a external frequency control. So if you set up a sync mechanism, which we will do, it will be synced to your BPM. You'll have the option of syncing it to your BPM. But then I noticed another thing. I noticed that there is a knob called envelope sweep on the LFO. which means that the envelope follower, the or ADSR that is here at the top, has also the option of affecting not only the filter, but also the LFO. So we kind of need something else. We need a way to be able to control the LFO's speed with an envelope. So for this, we have the LFO-A. Part of them is identical, but the A also has 3 additional inputs, and 2 of them being modulation inputs. Exactly what we need. We're going to insert the envelope into the modulation input, and it's going to behave the same way as the Interpole's LFO behaves. So we're going to delete the B. We're not going to need the B. We're going to need the A. So we have our LFO. We have our filter. It would be to look at this section over here. It says envelope follower ADSR/ADSR. And I can see here that you can choose mode would be the signal going into the ADSR and analyzing it and acting as an envelope follower. If you put it on internal, then there will be no reaction by the envelope to the signal. It will just act as a normal ADSR. So we're going to do it in this way. We're going to take 2 modules out. Again, here, one thing before is you see there's attack, decay, sustain. In the release, there's no length to it. It's either on or off. So we're going to do it in a little bit different kind of way. We're going to use a regular ADSR without the release on-off thing. And we're going to take out an envelope follower module. The ADSR and the envelope follower. We'll show you in a minute how we're going to have the same choice that the Interpole has. So we have the envelope follower and the ADSR itself taken out. We have the LFO itself taken out. And we have the filter itself taken out. Now, the filter inside, as you can see, has a drive section. Now, the drive section here can be either like, and it is, I'm pretty sure it's pre-filter, but I'm not even going to check it. We're going to do something else. We're going to have 2 distortion modules, and we're going to have one that is pre-filter and one that is post-filter, just because we want, you know, more cool options and to add to this thing. So modules, and as you can see, there are a ton of them here. Now we're just going to make a choice. You can test it out and see which one is sounding like the one they used. I'm guessing they likely used this one, the distortion one, but we're going to use the pulsifier one just for fun. I like it a lot. And here we go. So we've kind of placed one before the filter and one after the filter before making any connections. I'm just placing them. Now, this thing also has inside a VCA. As you can see, it is referenced VCA, and obviously the ADSR affects and the envelope follower can affect also the volume. And we're going to do the thing with the VCA. We're not going to use an actual VCA module, and I'll show you why. If we take out a VCA, this is the VCA. A module called an amplitude modulator. This is the amplitude modulator. So as you notice, the VCA has one input, which is a modulation input, and normally you would connect an envelope or an LFO or whatever to this, and it will work. But on the amplitude modulator, we have 2 inputs. And we have an offset knob. If we turn the offset knob all the way up, then the signal will be on all the time. If we turn it halfway up, then obviously it'll be at 50%, and then the envelope and or LFO attached to these modulation inputs will swing it up or down. Or we can close it entirely and have the envelope opening it and closing it, just the envelope or LFO controlling totally how it opens and closes. So I'm going to remove the VCA amplitude modulator module instead. So and I want it to be the last thing. I want it to be after the filter, because I want to have the option of self-resonating the filter and still controlling that self-resonated output. with the amplitude modulator. Now, let's start making connections. So first of all, we have our audio input. As I said, this is an FX plugin. So we're going to connect the audio input out of the first connection over here. This is going to be our left, and we're going to connect it to the envelope follower. And we're also going to connect it all the way down here into the first distortion module. And we're going to connect that first distortion module to the filter, to the second distortion module, which we're using the pulsifier, but it's, like I said, it's basically a distortion module. So the audio is going into the envelope follower right now, which isn't, isn't going anywhere just yet. It is just being analyzed. We also connected it already to the filter itself, to the audio is actually, this is the audio chain is going to get filtered. This is the whole point of what we're doing. So it's going here, and it's also going over here to enable the control signal of the follower. You've noticed I put the control signals on the top and the LFO over here, kind of just, organizing it just a little bit. It might change, the organization might change a little more as we make the connections. So let's keep on going. After the audio leaves the second distortion, we want it to go to the VCA, and we're using, like I said, an amplitude modulator that it is serving as a VCA. And then it can go outside, but we're not going to make that connection just yet. Let's leave it like this. What the control signals are actually doing. The first thing that we know is that the LFO, you can see right here, it has the option of controlling both the VCF and the VCA. So it means the LFO obviously needs to be connected to the input of the VCF and to the input of the VCA. But before making that connection, if you remember at the start of the video, I was talking about how the Interpole itself on sample and hold, the sound a little bit clicky. So what the whole point of building this in Modular, one of the points was to make sure that we get rid of that clickiness. So there's a little modular trick for you guys. If you go over to the filters and pull out a really simple 6 dB low pass filter without any modulations on it, you don't need anything, and connect the LFO's output. Remember, this is a control signal, right? You connect it to the 6 dB low pass filter, and you take this filter almost all the way down. If you take it all the way down, it will obviously totally change. It'll turn it into a sine, basically. So you're kind of taking it almost all the way down, opening it just one or two notches, and what it does is it takes, you see, as you can see right here, sample and hold LFO is really squared. It's based like on the activity that's going on is squared. So when you change, as it changes, it abruptly makes the change. What the 6 dB low pass filter does is it takes the squareness of the sample and hold LFO and it smooths out the edges. So it basically works as a control smoother, and you end up with the same sample and hold but without the clicks. Obviously, it also depends on how low you close the low pass filter. On high settings, this whole area probably won't affect it at all. But once you get down to the last few ticks, you kind of set it by ear. Does what you want it to do, which is just smooth out, ruin the whole activity of the LFO. So we've connected it. There we go. Let's put it back in there. So we have the 6 dB low pass filter. So we're going to output from it, where we mentioned before, VCF and VCA. So the LFO goes to the first modulation input of the VCF, the first modulation input on the amplitude modulator, our VCA. That is connected already, the LFO. Let's go one by one and see what we need to do. So look, actually see there are MIDI sync options right here. You triggered to what? Hold that thought. The envelope has a MIDI option. So what does that mean, actually? I mean, you're inputting sound over here. Why would you need MIDI? So what this lets you do is, let's say you are sending one MIDI channel to the synth. You have 60 MIDI channels. You're working, I don't know, with a hardware synth. You're sending channel 1 to the hardware, and it's playing some notes. It's playing some notes. It's cool, and it's going into the Interpole plugin. The Interpole is doing its thing, and it allows you to send either the same channel or a totally separate channel. You could send channel 2 to the Interpole, send totally different MIDI notes or MIDI triggering to it, and the Interpole's envelopes, LFOs, and the whole thing will respond to these MIDI notes and these triggers. So obviously it allows for really cool sound design and sculpting by working like this. So we need this whole mechanism of working with MIDI inside our patch. So we're going to take, first of all, an MVC. I'm just going to pull out MVCA, which is a simple MIDI brain. We're going to have the MIDI that is incoming into the patch to the MVC for processing. And then the MVC separates that MIDI signal into gate signal, frequency signal, velocity, and whatever you're going to want to use. So the first thing that we look at is we have the LFO, and it is either re-triggered or not re-triggered. So it is simple enough. All we need to do is take the gate output, which is actually the thing that tells an LFO or an envelope when to trigger, and connect it to the LFO's gate input. This knob will re-trigger yes or no. So this little button right here is actually the same as this, this switch on the Interpole's front panel. So it's exactly the same. I have sync mode on and off, which here would be this button, but it's not connected to anything. Right now, only the LFO's internal rate, manual rate knob is connected. So we're going to have a mechanism that is going to be able to send LFO precise BPM information, a MIDI clock signal. Here, MIDI clock. Provides BPM internally to the patch or externally by connecting it to the MIDI out of the patch. One thing I want to mention, I don't like using external clock sources within Modular. Now, why is that? First of all, a little bug, and Scope is notoriously not good in keeping external clock inside from sequencers inside Scope. The clock becomes very jittery and unstable, but it is no problem. Why is it no problem? Because you can use the internal clock, set it on whatever BPM you want. Have everything is triggering anyways with the gate from the MIDI. So the clock is exactly like your computer's clock, and it behaves the same, and it'll be on time and super stable if you use it internally with gate triggering. So this is just a little tip. So here's the MIDI clock. Now, it's outputting 148 BPM. It's a control number, but it's not a frequency. As you can see, the LFO, it's working on a frequency, right? It's going like an analog. It's pretending, of course, to be analog. It's obviously digital, but it's moving in hertz. Even when it's on external mode, it's still moving in hertz, but it can know what hertz to be on in order to sync to the clock. So for this, you need a module called a frequency divider. Frequency divider B, which actually allows for 4 frequency divided signals. There is no module that allows for just 1, so we're going to use the one that has 4, and we're going to use just one of them. And obviously, don't forget that we're working on a stereo device, so we're going to use the second one as well once we set up, once we copy paste and set up our second channel. So I connected the clock to the frequency divider. There's output to the external input of the LFO. And then if you go on the divider itself, you can scroll between the different divisions. So we took care of that. So let's just go down and checklist what we did. So we have the sync covered, we have the retrigger covered, we have it going to the VCF, we have it going to the VCA. The one thing, waveform and rate are over here, and init phase, there we go, it's already on our module. The one thing we have left is the envelope sweep. Remember we said the envelope affects either the LFO, I'm sorry, either the LFO is affected either by the envelope or by the envelope follower. And this would be the connection right here, which is a modulation input on the LFO. But now we have to do another thing. We have both the envelope and the envelope follower. And we have to be able to use either one of them, like on the Interpole itself. If to use the envelope or to use the ADSR. So we're using a switch module. And again, we don't have a 2-switch module, but it doesn't matter. We're going to use a 4-switch module with just 2 of the inputs connected. Right here after our envelopes. To connect the envelope follower to the first switch location, and the second envelope that we opened into the second switch location. Set to the first position, output the envelope follower. When it is set to the second position, it will output the ADSR envelope. And then we're going to take the output. You know what? We're going to do something cooler. You know what? I have a cooler idea. See, the Interpole allows you to choose, right? And then it will, whatever you chose will affect the envelope sweep on the LFO and the envelope sweep on the filter. What if we want to do something neater? What if we want to have like the LFO being controlled by the follower and the filter being controlled by the ADSR? Why not have that option? I mean, if we can do it really simply, I mean, all we need to do is take another switch. I'm going to copy paste. So I pasted a new switch, the same exact 4-to-1 switch. The filter, because it has to do directly with affecting the filter. And we're going to connect it in the same way. Okay, so this is for the first one. And the exact same thing for the second switch. Oops, didn't make the connection. And then we're going to connect this second switch into the filter's second modulation input. Now we've separated the switches. I'll show you in a minute. The first switch is going to be going to, where was the second, the ADSR. So here we go. So now it's really cool. Now we have a choice. We can use really like as should be in modular. We can use this ADSR to control either this or that. We can use the follower to control either this or that. We can use both of them to control one of them. We're not limited by connectivity in any way. So I think it's much cooler than on the Interpole. So it's a nice improvement that we just really simply added to this machine. We have here going on. Let's see. Obviously, I did I'm stuttering a little bit because I have yet another idea. Okay. Look, we connected the follower and ADSR to the filter modulation. We connected it to the amplitude modulation, but we forgot. I kind of forgot while talking that, of course, here we have an envelope sweep on the LFO. So again, you might be already guessing, we're going to take out another switch just to keep the same options open for modulating the filter's LFO. So we're going to connect the switch to the filter's first modulation input. And again, we're going to take, like we did for the filter and for the ADSR down here, we're going to take the envelope follower into the first connection. And we're going to take the regular envelope into the second connection. Now the LFO's rate modulation has the same choice between them as do the filter and the VCA. There we go. Yeah, that's another improvement. We have full control and full implementation. Okay, so we did the envelope follower. The LFO, I think we did everything we're supposed to do. So the LFO, we can be kind of set it aside. We did this. We did the drive. We have the envelope sweep going into the filter. We have the LFO going into the filter. It looks pretty much like, I think we did everything that we're supposed to do. Oh, okay. No, one thing we didn't do. One thing we didn't do is we didn't connect the envelope follower does not need a gate signal because the envelope follower responds to the signal itself, the audio signal itself that is being sent inside. But the regular ADSR has nothing to do with the incoming audio. It is a pure control signal, and it needs to know when to start. So obviously, we're going to take the gate from the MVC to connect it into the ADSR. So now the ADSR knows that when you're sending MIDI notes over the correct MIDI channel, now's the time to get into action and do your thing. So we've connected it. And there's another connection you need to make in scope, which has to do with the internal voice structure. I'm not going to get into that because it's not really an artistic thing. It's a design thing within the modular. What I'm trying to say is that you see this connection here, the eSync connection. You need to make this connection in order for the MVC itself to be active. We'll get into what the eSync means and what it does and why it's there in another video. We made every single connection. I'm not sure if I got something or not. It looks like the signal flow is, yeah, everything looks fine. We can add another thing that the Interpole doesn't have. Just because we already have the connection and it would be a shame not to use it, we already have an MVC out here, and we already have the LFO and a filter out here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the note, the key follow, and we're going, the LFO, it's a little bit obscured now by the cables, but the LFO has a key follow input. So why not? We're going to make the connection. Whether we use it or not, it's another story, but if it's there, then sure. So I've connected it, the key follow, filter, which also has a key follow option, as as it should, as filters should have on them. So we've made that connection as well. Why not? Like everything is connected, and I'm going to move the clock signal just over here to the right, because what I need to do now is copy the whole thing over again. I'm going to make some space. Thing. B. B. So this is actually pretty cool. That, I mean, it's like a kind of quality control check that once you have to copy everything, you have to copy the connections, and you make sure again that you did everything that you're supposed to do. So I'm just going to go through. Obviously, this is the first audio input was the left, so the second one would be the right side, and we're going to make every single connection that the left side has on the right side, and it's kind of also a nice way, like I said, to double check that we've made the correct connections. So gate goes here, make the connection. Envelope into 1, into 2 on all the switches. So I'm just going to do all the switches at once. Come on. Here we go. I like to have everything in the same color. The cables, you can use different colors for the cables, but it's just confusing. There's enough confusing stuff going on within Modular, so I like to have audio and control signals in blue and just the gate in yellow. The gate signals in yellow. I don't know why. It's just kind of like I've gotten used to working in this way, and you can do it, of course, any other way. You don't even have to to change the default colors if you don't want to. It's obviously up to you. So again, I'm going through every connection that I'm seeing. I'm making it. I could be more methodical in doing this, I guess, but it's fine. This was for the LFO. Again, if you can mute the cables. Did the right thing, so all the way down to the VCA. Then we had the 60V LP to the VCA. Yeah, that's how we had it. Cool. It can get quite hectic, obviously, as you can see. I mean, we haven't done that much yet, and it's already. There we go. And then we had the filter, the audio itself. Well, where is it? There we go. Sorry for that. Don't get phone calls at this hour, so expect that. To fire here. There we go. Oh yeah, I didn't. The phone kind of made me forget. I was just gonna make this connection. So let's see. It looks like everything is done. Go through it now. Keep follow. We go on the filter. We need to connect the note, the key follow. And then we have the LFO, the filtered LFO going in. We have the whole thing going out into the and then in order for it to be okay, let's add one more thing just for fun. I always do it on my patches. I always add an insert effect that allows me to have inside the patch. I just add it to all my patches, kind of just because I want to. So here I'm putting in the multi-effects unit. I'm not going to put anything in it. It's just, I'm just going to save it this way, so it's already in the patch. The last thing, two things you need to do. Remember I talked before about this place, the eSync. So you notice we have two envelopes with this E output here. It has to do with the way, like I said, the voice structuring and with polyphonic signals. So what you need to do is if you have two modules, with whatever module you have that has an eSync output needs to go to eventually into this E output of the MVC. So we're just going to have, we have two, so we're having eSync add to the envelope eSyncs into this. And then we're connecting it into the eSync input. I haven't seen this way of structuring in other modulars. I mean, obviously every module, all modulars have voice structuring, but in most modulars you don't need to manually set this. The modular will kind of take care of that inside. But it's not really a big deal if you know that you need to connect that connection. So, and then we're going to have a poly out. Just what it does is it summons the voices. If we have a polyphonic thing going on, I mean, we might want to send polyphonic information to the LFOs and to the envelopes. And for that, we're going to need to, as they come out, so we have a poly out patch. It makes everything monophonic. And we're connecting the output. So that's it. We've actually built the Interpole plugin. We've actually added some other things to it that it doesn't have. Our LFO is smoother than on the Interpole. We have key following on the LFOs and on the filter. We have an additional distortion module. The LFO is smoother. Like we said, we have more options of routing, the envelope follower and the ADSR. Yeah, well, everything else is the same. I think this is an exact clone. The one thing that we don't have is this release on and off on the ADSR, which I don't really get fully at the moment, how I would implement that in modular, but I don't know, it totally doesn't matter. You know, we have everything else going, and this is not going to be like a major issue because we do have a release. I mean, if we want the release off, we can just turn it off, and if we want it on, we can just pull it up. So it's exactly the same. I'm just making sure that we did everything. It looks to me like we did, but okay. I see the LFO here has a way to invert the LFO. But all you would need to do is add an, I don't know, it's not needed. You can add an inverter module, it's right here. Before each LFO, or sorry, after each LFO. We're not going to do that. This is cool enough. It's actually very cool. And yeah, you've made a really nice device quickly just by analyzing everything. It looks like a lot of connections and looks like a lot of mayhem and like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here, right? But if we look at the Interpole and we do it like we did it here, and we just pull out modules one by one, make the connections as we go and sort of build it as we're going, then the end result is actually, if you do it this way, it's not so hard to comprehend and realize what is going on. The Interpole is actually pretty neat. It's cool routing inside. I'm going to test dispatch in just a bit. After I do the video, I just want to make sure that I've made all the correct connections and everything is working and making sound like I want it to, but it should work. It should be fine and a fun thing to use. So hope you learned something from this and use it to make like whatever modular things in your own modular systems. Have a good day. Stay tuned for our other videos. Ciao.